Doubts about my relationship of 5 years. I just needed to get this off my chest after a difficult couple of weeks, following a serious conversation with my boyfriend. Me, 22, and my boyfriend, 23, went to school together. I had liked him for a couple of years, and even asked him a few times if he was interested in me romantically. I know, no shame. Every single time, though, he told me that we should just stay friends. When we were 17, another guy in our friendship group, let's call him Jim, became interested in me romantically. I turned him down because I was still hopelessly in love with my now boyfriend, despite the fact that he never seemed interested in me back then. Apparently, Jim later approached him and said, "Hey, I asked her out, but I think this girl is in love with you." And somehow, that conversation was what finally prompted him to ask me if I wanted to give it a go with him. Romantic, right? At the time, I didn't care how it started. I was just ecstatic that the person I had wanted for years was finally choosing me. I remember going home that night and feeling like my entire world had shifted into place. I genuinely believed this was the beginning of the kind of love story people spend their whole lives searching for, and in many ways it was beautiful. We started seeing each other properly and instantly clicked. We became inseparable. We went to the same university, shared the same friendship group, got along wonderfully with each other's families, and eventually moved into a rented place together with my cat, who he absolutely adores. We basically grew up together. We went from awkward, anxious teenagers to adults trying to navigate jobs, bills, responsibilities, and everything else life throws at you. There's something incredibly intimate about watching someone evolve over so many years. He has seen every version of me: insecure, ambitious, exhausted, emotional, hopeful, and I've seen every version of him too. That history is what makes all of this so painful, because despite all the love we have for each other, I can't shake this feeling that something important has always been missing between us. Throughout the relationship, there have been recurring points of discontent that we've discussed over and over again. We never really fight or scream at each other. If anything, we communicate calmly. But the same conversations keep resurfacing no matter how much time passes. The biggest issue has always been intimacy. I've always been the more sexual partner in the relationship. For at least 3 years now, I've expressed that I wish we had sex more often, and that I wanted him to seem more enthusiastic about it instead of brushing me off because he's tired or because it's a bit late. Over time, those rejections started to affect me more deeply than I'd like to admit. I began questioning whether he was truly attracted to me at all. It damaged my confidence in ways I never expected. I found myself analyzing every little thing: the way he looked at me, whether he initiated affection, how quickly he pulled away after kissing me. I became hyper-aware of every moment where I felt unwanted. And to make matters worse, he once admitted that he wasn't initially attracted to me when we first got together. Even though he insists that changed a long time ago, I don't think that confession ever fully left my mind. It planted a seed of insecurity that quietly grew roots over the years. Sometimes I look at him and wonder if he chose me because I was safe, because I was there, because I loved him first. That thought absolutely destroys me. I don't expect some unrealistic movie-level relationship where we rip each other's clothes off every 5 minutes. I know real love settles into comfort eventually, but I still crave passion. I crave feeling desired. I want someone to look at me like they can't believe I'm theirs. Instead, I often feel like a very loved roommate. And it's not just the physical side of the relationship either. We rarely go on dates unless I'm the one suggesting them. If I try to plan something spontaneous or fun that I think we'd both enjoy, he usually sighs or reacts like it's some kind of inconvenience. There's never any excitement behind it. Even on holidays, which are always my idea, he spends half the time complaining. Last time we went abroad together, I remember being so excited beforehand. I spent weeks researching restaurants, activities, beaches, little places we could explore together. I imagined us making memories, laughing, drinking cocktails in the evening sun, maybe even reconnecting romantically away from everyday life. Instead, he mostly complained about the heat. He didn't want to join in with activities at the resort, didn't seem enthusiastic about exploring, and generally acted like he would rather be anywhere else. Meanwhile, I was trying desperately to hold on to the fantasy version of us that I always carry in my head. Maybe that's my problem. I have an extremely vivid imagination. I adore fantasy, romance, poetry, all of it. I love stories about intense love that consumes people completely, the kind of connection that changes you forever. Maybe I've listened to too much Hosier, but honestly, I don't think it's wrong to want romance. I don't think it's unreasonable to want your partner to make you feel special sometimes. I want flowers for no reason. I want someone to pull me into the kitchen and dance with me while dinner burns. I want someone who looks excited just to spend time with me, and I know he loves me. I truly do. He is trustworthy, intelligent, grounded, funny, and kind. We laugh together constantly. He knows me better than anyone else in the world. I work long NHS shifts, and he always makes sure dinner is waiting for me when I get home because he works remotely. In so many ways, he takes care of me beautifully. But sometimes I wonder if love alone is enough when the romance feels absent. A couple of weeks ago, I finally admitted all of this to him properly. I told him that I felt unwanted sometimes, that I missed passion, that I was scared we were slowly becoming more like best friends than romantic partners. And he looked genuinely shocked. From his perspective, everything was going well. He told me he is attracted to me. He told me he loves me deeply, and that he's loving me in the only way he knows how. And honestly, I believe him completely. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. Because there's no villain here. He isn't cruel. He isn't toxic. He doesn't insult me or manipulate me or make me feel unsafe. If anything, he is one of the gentlest people I know. But after that conversation, nothing really changed. Just like every other time we've talked about this, things improved for maybe a day or two before quietly slipping back into normality. And now I feel guilty for still being unhappy despite being loved by such a good person. Sometimes I think maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I'm chasing some impossible fantasy that doesn't exist in real life. Maybe stable love is supposed to feel calm instead of electric. Maybe this is what mature relationships actually look like after years together. But another part of me keeps whispering, what if this isn't enough for you? And that thought terrifies me. Because the truth is, I can see our future together so clearly. I can picture us buying a house, adopting more pets, getting married, growing old together. I know with absolute certainty that he would stand beside me through every hardship life could throw at us. He would be dependable, loyal, steady, and yet, somewhere deep inside me, there's this aching grief for a love I feel like I've never truly experienced. I want a relationship that feels alive. I want to be kissed like I'm wanted. I want passion. I want romance. I want to feel chosen every single day instead of simply accommodated. And I'm terrified that if I ignore these feelings now, I'll wake up 10 years from now married with children and realize I stayed because I was afraid of hurting him. Or worse, because I was afraid of being alone. The idea of leaving him feels unbearable. He's been intertwined with my life for so long that losing him would feel like amputating part of myself. He's my best friend, my home, my comfort person. How do you look into the eyes of someone who genuinely loves you and tell them you're no longer certain about your future together? How do you walk away from someone good? I honestly don't know. All I know is that this feeling in my chest refuses to disappear no matter how hard I try to silence it. And I think deep down, I already know that whatever decision I make is going to hurt immensely. I'm just terrified of making the wrong one. Since our conversation, I've started noticing things I used to ignore. Not bad things, necessarily. Just little moments that make me realize how emotionally lonely I've been feeling for a long time. Like how he rarely looks up from his phone when I'm talking about something I'm excited about. Or how I'll spend ages getting dressed nicely before we go somewhere together, only for him to barely react beyond a quick, "You look nice." I know that sounds shallow, but when you spend years craving reassurance from the person you love most, even tiny moments start to matter more than they should. The other night, I caught myself imagining what it would feel like to be with someone who looked at me with hunger and admiration. Someone who planned dates without me asking. Someone who grabbed my hand first. Someone who noticed when I changed my hair or wore their favorite outfit. And immediately afterward, I felt sick with guilt. Because here I am fantasizing about emotional intensity, while lying beside a man who would probably do absolutely anything for me if I needed him to. He's dependable in every practical sense of the word. If my car broke down at 2 a.m., he'd come get me. If I was ill, he'd stay up all night taking care of me. If I lost my job tomorrow, he'd support me without hesitation. But emotional passion, romance, desire, those things feel like distant echoes in our relationship, if they were ever there at all. Sometimes I wonder whether we accidentally skipped the exciting part of being in love and went straight into acting like a married couple before we were even adults. What scares me the most is how invisible these feelings are to everyone around us. To everyone else, we are the perfect couple. Our friends always talk about how stable we are. Our families adore the relationship. People constantly say things like, "You two are definitely endgame," or, "I can't imagine either of you with anyone else." And honestly, neither can I. That's part of the problem. My entire adult identity has been built around him being there. Every future plan I've ever made automatically included him in it. Every goal, every holiday idea, every dream house on Rightmove that I saved at 1 a.m. All of it had us in the picture. I genuinely don't remember who I was before him anymore. Sometimes I think maybe that's why I've stayed quiet about these doubts for so long. Because admitting them out loud suddenly makes everything fragile. Once you acknowledge unhappiness, you can't really pretend it isn't there anymore. And now I feel trapped between two impossible choices. Stay with someone I deeply love and risk quietly grieving the relationship I wish we had. Or leave and destroy both of our lives over a feeling I can't even fully explain. A few days ago, Jim actually came up in conversation again while we were out with friends. Nothing dramatic happened. Someone just mentioned an old school memory and laughed about how obvious it was that I used to be obsessed with my boyfriend back then. Everyone laughed, including me. But later that night, after we got home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Back then, I wanted him so badly that I convinced myself simply being chosen by him would make me happy forever. I built him up into this almost mythical person in my mind. The boy I couldn't have. The boy I waited years for. And now, after finally having him for over 5 years, I can't tell whether I'm grieving the relationship itself or grieving the fantasy I attached to it. Maybe I fell in love with the idea of finally being loved back by him. Maybe he loved the comfort of being loved so completely by someone. And maybe neither of us realized that those things alone aren't always enough to sustain a lifelong romantic relationship. That realization hurt more than I expected. Because I do love him. I really, truly do. But sometimes when he kisses me goodbye before work, I feel absolutely nothing except familiarity. And I hate myself for that. Recently, I've caught myself paying attention to other couples. Not in a cheating way. More like observing them. Tiny things. The way someone instinctively touches their partner's lower back while walking through a crowd. The way they make each other laugh. The way they look excited simply to spend time together. And every time I notice it, I feel this horrible ache in my chest. Because I can't remember the last time my relationship felt like that. We function beautifully as a team. Bills get paid. Dinner gets cooked. Laundry gets folded. Life moves forward smoothly and safely. But somewhere along the way, it feels like we stopped being two people passionately in love and became companions surviving adulthood together. And maybe companionship is enough for some people. Maybe some people would kill for the stability we have. But I keep thinking about being 80 years old, looking back on my life, and wondering whether I settled because I was too afraid to chase the possibility of something more. That thought keeps me awake at night. Not because I think some perfect soulmate is magically waiting for me out there. I'm not naive enough to believe that. But because I know deep down that I am starving for something emotionally richer than this. Something warmer. Something softer. Something that makes me feel alive instead of simply secure. Last night, after he had already fallen asleep, I just lay there beside him in the dark listening to him breathe, and suddenly I started crying. Quietly at first, so I wouldn't wake him up. Because the truth finally hit me in full. I don't want to lose him. But I also don't want to lose myself trying to convince myself that this relationship is enough. I looked over at him sleeping peacefully beside me and thought about all the years we've shared together. All the birthdays, the holidays, the inside jokes no one else would understand. The versions of ourselves we helped shape. This man has been woven into the fabric of my life for so long that imagining a future without him feels almost impossible. And yet, for For the first time, staying together also feels impossible. Not because there's hatred, not because there's betrayal, not because either of us failed to love the other, but because sometimes love simply changes shape until one person quietly realizes they are no longer living, only settling. I think that's the cruelest kind of heartbreak there is. Loving someone deeply while slowly understanding they may not be the person you're meant to spend your life with. This morning, he kissed my forehead before making coffee like he always does. He smiled at me sleepily and asked if I wanted breakfast. And I nearly broke apart right there in the kitchen, because how am I supposed to explain that someone can be good, gentle, loyal, and loving, and still not feel like home anymore? I don't know what happens next. Maybe we'll fight for this relationship and somehow rediscover each other. Maybe I'll walk away and regret it for years. Maybe this is just a phase born from fear and restlessness. Or maybe my intuition has been trying to tell me the truth for a very long time. All I know is that somewhere along the way, the future I once wanted with all my heart started feeling like a life I was trying to force myself into instead. And that realization has changed everything.